This lesson today will be not so focused on the specific details of the various attacks. We'll get into that in another time, but more to give an overarching sense of what to do from open guard, some of the things you should expect, and how to retain your guard against someone's attempts to pass. And then I will try to also blend it into what the guard passer will be thinking and trying to do while you're playing guard. So the first thing we should keep in mind is we'll break up what we're trying to accomplish from guard into two big phases. There's the defensive guard phase, and then there's the offensive guard phase, or the movements that I make in order to properly defend my guard. And then if I'm able to do that and maintain a certain minimum requirements, then there's the things that I do to go on offense for my guard. So if you're ever going to attack the other person, you're looking for your grips, you're looking for certain sweeps, and you get a sense that you are losing certain alignments that would qualify for you having a good defensive guard, then you should stop attacking, defend your guard, and then return to attacking at a later point. Okay, so the big thing that we're going to look for a defensive guard to know we're doing a good job with that is to be centerline to centerline with the other person and have our legs between ourselves and the other person. And it's a pretty broad definition on purpose because it allows for you to move in different ways depending on what your partner is doing. And as long as you fulfill these low requirements, being centerline to centerline with your legs between yourself and the other person, then you're actually fine defensively. And you can think about building up an attack. You can think about heisting up and standing up to your feet. There's different things you can do after that. But our first thing is the movements that you make as the person on bottom are to first retain your guard. And that's going to mean centerline to centerline with legs between yourself and the other person. So what we'll start off with is I'm going to just have Sean and myself moving in a very light guard passing scenario, and I'm going to call out and describe some of the main movements that I make to retain my guard. Okay, so the first one is if I'm here with Sean and he's looking to get no stance and start passing, and I'm looking to get some sort of grip that I can use to be effective from the bottom. I've got one hand here that's on the floor, and I've got another hand that's out in front looking to make contact with Sean. The first type of movement that I make is just scooting so that I can retain centerline to centerline alignment with him. So let's say Sean starts going out to one side and he's just sidestepping on me. I just scoot in order to face him. If he goes to the other side, then I just scoot in order to face him. Okay, this is pretty simple. If he goes to the other side again, we just move in a way that allows us to retain this alignment. He goes back to the first side, and we're here, ready to go. Okay, so that's obviously a very simple movement. I'm just scooting in a circle to retain alignment with Sean. Okay, because I'm moving on a very small circle, and Sean is moving on a wider circle, I should be able to stay ahead of him if that's all that ever happened. But obviously that's not all that's going to happen. I could be pushed over and forced to play off of my back. He could drop down in different stances. There's things that happen that obviously break this alignment. One of them is if I'm here and I was trying to scoot side to side on Sean, well, let's say he's able to come in and he grabs a hold of my hand here. I go to free it, and now as I free it, he goes to pull up on my heel, and he tries to put me flat on my back. I go to kick this leg away, and he puts two hands on me and shoves me backwards here. Okay, so that would be one way for him to take me out of a seated position and into a supine position. And you see, as soon as that happens, he starts to make contact on me so that he can start going side to side and passing my guard. Now, Sean will be okay with me putting my hands on his sleeves in some way, shape, or form, but he's not going to want me putting my feet on his upper body or down his lower body. So he'll position his elbows to cover so that I really have a hard time trying to connect to his upper body or his legs. Okay, if he can do that, then he can start going side to side on me. And once he's out to the side here, now I need to use different movements in order to retain my guard. One thing I might want to do is always have an elbow knee frame prepared if I can tell which side he's going to be going to. Then I can use my outside leg to pommel and recover centerline to centerline. Okay, that movement right there where I take my outside leg and I scissor it over my other leg, that's going to come up again and again as I go to retain my guard. When I did it just now on Sean, I might have moved about this far with my leg, up and over. So I was here, he goes about to the side, and I bring my leg up and over and realign. not that dramatic of a movement. But if Sean shoves me back again, bang, and he knocks me down here and he goes further out to the side, now I want to track on one of his legs where he's going. I want to have a frame prepared in case his shoulder or his knee were to start to come down. Then I bring the inside leg, I bring the elbow, knee close together. My outside leg still goes over the top, and I look to retain my guard and be center line with him, with my legs between the two of us. Now, if Sean goes further than that, and he's at about 12 o'clock on me, same idea. I'm center line with him now, but my legs are not between the two of us. So I need to put something up between us, then I can bring my legs up, and actually in this position, I'm fine defensively. The issue is I've got to get out of here, back to alignment with him so I can go on the attack. So I wouldn't just stay here, I would want to realign my body until I'm lined up with him again. Then if he goes back and away from me, I would sit up with him, and then I could go in and grip, and we would be back in a guard passing exchange. Another important movement is in order to retain our guard against somebody's resistance is if Sean goes from the position he's in now, and I'm in the position I'm in right now, he comes down to a double knee position. So he drops down and he's looking to stop me from putting him in something like a spider guard or a collar and sleeve guard. So he comes down to his two knees like this. Okay, now maybe I was working with something like a cross collar grip, but perhaps as I'm doing this, Sean takes my knees down towards one side like this. Sean's able to take my knees down to one side of my body here. This is a very compromised position, and he could easily pass if I stay like this. Okay, so another movement that we'll use is if I ever feel him getting the beat on me and my knees coming down to the floor, this grip that I was working with, I'm going to turn and frame, and I'm going to start to heist up. So I take my butt up off the ground, I turn my chest down, and I slide my knee and foot back. Now that I've taken my knee back and away, I can pull my other leg away, and I can go back to playing guard against him. So if I'm in his double knee position here, and he ends up bringing my knee towards the floor like this, I don't want to sit here and just try to open my knee against his resistance. Instead, I use my upper body frame here to stop him from making contact with my upper body. Then I would turn chest to the ground and heist my leg back and away. Then I pull my back leg away from him, and we can go back and retain our guard. Okay, so the first movement was scooting. I just moved side to side on him. The second movement was scissoring one leg over the other, and it can be a very narrow scissor, just right in front of you. It could be all the way up to your 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and it can also be at your 12 o'clock, which would almost be a complete inversion. Okay, the next movement after that is heisting. I don't like the situation I'm in any sort of seated position, no problem. We start heisting up, and then we can go back and play guard. Okay? Now, another movement that's really important is shoulder rolling. This happens anytime you're being exposed with the turtle, and you need to use a roll of some sort in order to go back to your guard. Okay, so we'll just jump right into a turtle position here, and let's say that I'm in this turtle position, and Sean is looking for some sort of grip on me. Now, if Sean's out to my right-hand side, my left hand is going to do most of my defensive work. I've got to track and monitor his right hand. He would love it to come in and take a lapel gripper right here and then just finish me right in this position. If he can't do that, he'll do something like take a seatbelt grip here, or he might grab the crossbody grip and then a horseshoe grip in my lapel. These are all very bad for me. Now, the horseshoe grip can be a little bit tough to stop because it doesn't happen in front of you, but you never want to just give them your lapels or the seatbelt grip without any sort of contest on your end. So as he comes in to attack with the seatbelt and the horseshoe grip, I'm going to monitor his right hand. My right hand can reinforce my left either from the outside or from the inside. I just want to make sure that he doesn't connect his hands if I'm in this turtle position. If I can do that, then it's safe for me to go through a shoulder roll. So I've done my defensive work here, monitoring his hand. I'm going to bring my chin to my chest, and my shoulder will come down. Now I come up off my knees here, and I split my two legs. Now I'm going to go through a shoulder roll. I'm going to take my outside leg and swing it all the way out and around until I can get into a position where we're center line to center line, and my legs are between the two of us. You'll see that when I do that shoulder roll, I try to aim my tailbone right at his armpit, so that as I go through the roll, I can push with my tailbone, keep distance between the two of us, and then go back and retain my guard. So here we are, we're in the turtle position. He comes into grip. I monitor in this position defensively. I make sure he doesn't have an easy time getting a hold of my lapels. Then I put my shoulder down, my chin tucked, my knees come up off the floor, and I split my stance. I go wide with the leg here, and I push my tailbone forward until I can get into a position where we're realigned, and then I can think about going on the attack. Okay, so that's another important movement for good open guard play, good guard retention, is a shoulder roll that gets you back into alignment with your partner, center line to center line. There are other movements involved here. I'll just demonstrate a couple of them briefly, but these are things that I think a lot of you are familiar with. That's just going to be hip escaping, bridging, and then there are some combinations that you'll need to know to put those together. Just as a quick example, if we're going to bridge, if I'm going to bridge to this side, I want to take one leg out to the side. I'm bridging to my right, so my right knee will start pointing in that direction. Once I have my knee pointing in that direction, it's all about bringing my hips up and out to the side so that I can create some displacement out to the side that I'm bridging. Okay, I have my knee on the floor, my foot on the floor, and my shoulder on the floor. My outside leg can stay here if I happen to be going into a hip escape as my next movement. But if I'm bridging to turn somebody over, that outside leg is going to go over the top so I can get all the way up. So again, in that bridging movement, I take one leg and I turn it in the direction I'm going to bridge. Then I bridge up and over, and I can hip escape from here, so my foot will go high and my elbow and knee will join together. Then I can go back and retain my guard. Or I step, everything turns out to the side. Now it's time to finish a reversal. So my outside leg will go over my inside leg. Now we can come up and we're ready to go. Make sure your heels go to your butt first, and that you turn your knee out to the side. So try to avoid doing your bridge like this. You want to go in this direction. Don't let this leg just stay like this, okay? And don't let your outside leg be some distance from your butt. I'm like this, and I want to bridge here. It's weak, I get nothing really going here. I want to draw my foot in. I want to point my knee the direction of my bridge. So like this. Now I've already got my bridge started, but I haven't even left the floor. So now when I bridge, I get much more opening in my hip. I can go up to the ball of my foot, kick up and over, and then you're ready to go. So there's a whole bunch of different ways of bridging and hip escaping. This is something that will come up again and again, and that's just one example so that we have, at least we have a reference for it in this open guard retention scenario. Okay, so Sean's got his left leg in front, I've got my right foot in front. I want to take a cross-collar grip on him, and at the same time, he wants to grip on me in some way that allows him to start passing, okay? You'll see that right now, we're close at the toe line, but neither one of us has broken through yet. So we don't start like this. Okay, there's a big difference between where I am now and this position here, okay? From both of our perspectives, we are sort of using this sort of buffer between us where I know Sean has to at least advance and make one movement towards me before he's actually dangerous in any way. And the same is true from me to Sean. If I just sort of take my foot and bring it forward with no intention behind it, this is a green light for Sean. He'll know to go to this side and pass my guard. At the same time, if Sean is just standing straight up and he just walks straight forward like this, this is easy for me to work against. He's just giving me both of his legs. So before we start crossing this imaginary line that exists between his lead foot and my lead foot, where is it? That's my lead foot right there. Before we start getting close on that line, we're going to be looking for grips, hand positioning, whatever it is, so that by the time we actually breach that toe line, we have something useful, either Sean versus me or me against Sean. Okay, so we come in, and if possible, I would just go up and grab a cross collar grip here. Okay, when I'm doing this, I want to make sure I don't come up off the floor too far and hang out with my arm too extended for too long. This is because the more I do this and the more I reach and stay in this position, the more exposed I am to different kinds of submissions or even guard passes as I come down to the floor. Now it's fine to go up to a certain degree to get your grip, but don't hang out forever and expect them to just stay in front of you. So come up and take a grip. Now I push and pull on Sean. I want to control his head and I want to control his stance. So I use a small push to motivate him to slightly come forward, and then as I pull, I square him up and I hook here into his legs. Okay, so I've hooked two shoelaces inside of his legs and I've got a cross collar grip. So sometimes when you do this, you go into grip, you're going to be pushing and pulling your partner, and they're gonna start going to one side or the other. So let's say, as I pull, Sean starts to go out to the side here. I have my hand ready to catch his foot. If I catch his foot here, it's not so much that I'm gonna be able to stop him from moving, it's that I can bring an elbow and knee frame in, and then I can take my legs up onto Sean, either at his upper body, or if he's trying to pin my legs down, a distance foot on the hip, a guard retention movement, and then a foot here on the bicep. Then I can go right to the sleeve, and we would be in our open guard situation, ready to work. Okay, so sometimes you'll go directly into the legs with your two hooks. Other time, they'll try to sidestep on you and circle step, so you can use your hand that was on the floor to catch their legs, and then you can put your legs on them. Okay, so if I go cross collar grip, we looked at if Sean goes to this side, here as I pull, I can still look to hook my legs in, but I catch his leg. That way I can always align with him and place my legs on him, whether it be here or here, whatever it is I'm looking to do. Same start, but this time I go to grip, and now Sean goes to the other side here. So he's starting to create some problems on the other side of this pass. Now I can use a heist like we did before. I turn my body, I bring my knee and my foot to the same line as my hand, and now from this position I can go pulling my right leg back and down to my knees. Now I can just sit right back down and go back on the attack. Okay, so the first movement, he goes to one side where my guard is opening and facing, so I can grab and put my legs on him. He goes to the opposite side of that, then I need to use a heist to realign my body with him, and then I can go back and play guard. Okay, so if all that's said and done, I'm going to be able to get from a seated guard into some position where I make actual useful contact with him. You might have gone to the side once or twice, and then we get back to here, and I take my grip. I push pull, square him up, and hook into his legs. Now, what I do next will be partially based on what Sean allows me to do from this position. The most aggressive thing I could probably do is take a hold of his sleeve, pull, and place a distance foot here on his hip. Then I make sure that my cross collar grip has gone as far up to his ear as possible, and I pull my two elbows together and I turn my palms up. Now I pommel my right foot here to his bicep. Here like this. Okay? If ever possible, if I can take his elbow inside my hip, then I can go right up into something like a triangle. That would be great. But if he's pulling his elbow and knee together and I'm having a hard time breaking him down for the triangle, I can always step down here at his knee, pull on his collar, and look to off balance him and put that hand on the floor. When I get into a position like this, I want to bring my head underneath his head and look up towards him here. That's going to make it easy for me to pull my leg out, punch it up and around, and then lock. Now, there's a whole bunch of ways we can finish the triangle or adjust the triangle. Once I've gotten into this trap triangle position, the first thing I should do is pull in with my knees, and then I can either reach up for his head, putting my wrist behind his head, or I can just hold inside my shin. If you hold your shin, you want to be making contact with the head. So don't grab out here where the forearm doesn't even touch the head. Don't grab out here where you can't move your leg and adjust. Always take your forearm and make contact with the head and then hold on to your shin. That way when Sean goes to pull up and posture away, my forearm transfers the pull from my legs and grip into him, and it makes it hard for him to resist. Okay, now I take the hand that was in the collar and I look for a scoop grip here in the legs. If it feels hard to get under the legs, use the leg, the bite from the triangle to pull with knees like this. That way I can get underneath the leg here, turn to an angle. Now I look to adjust the triangle so that I can place the lock of the triangle right behind his head. I put my knee and shin over top of each other. I turn my calves in the same direction, and then we get into a good finish. Okay, so that would be one way to go from a seated guard up to your actual grip, place them in the collar and sleeve guard, and then attack with a triangle. So we can go very aggressive up to a triangle. There's omoplatas, there's arm locks, things like this. But another way to attack from that collar and sleeve, much more conservative, is to not go for a triangle, but to go underneath and just go into a closed guard. Once I get to a closed guard, I'm going to probably have to use a scoop grip and a partial handstand sweep to knock him down, reset him on his knees, and then you can go about attacking him from closed guard. So we're starting off here. I get my grip on Sean, push, pull, square him up, hook into the legs. Sleeve grip here, foot on the hip, other foot to the bicep. I try to go off balancing Sean and get to the triangle, but he's aware of that, he's not letting me do it. So I put my foot under his arm. Now I pull my hips up and I get my knees as high as possible. Now I just lock my closed guard around him. I maintain my sleeve grip and I go from cross collar to scoop grip here against Sean. I have my elbow inside of his heel. I lock my legs together and I pull with my heels and lift my hip. To knock him over, I want to get my hips over his knee. So either using the sleeve grip or placing my hand on the floor, I'm going to lift my hips up and over his knee and put my ear towards the ground. Here, like this. Okay, once we get to this position, I just knocked Sean down. He's probably going to shorten everything here, shorten his two legs, and then try to get back on top. Once he's back on top, no problem. We knee pull, and we're in a good closed guard to attack them. Okay, so that covers a quick movement from the seated guard to a collar and sleeve guard into one of several attacks, going up to a triangle or going to a closed guard. Now, that exchange right there, obviously if it plays out like that, that's fantastic for me. Your partner will always be looking to resist you. So one sort of circular recursive drill we can do is when I get to the collar and sleeve guard and my partner modifies that so he's not in danger, he goes to the headquarters position, and then I'm expected to be able to get out of there and go to the collar and sleeve guard on the opposite side. Okay, so we'll look at that together and then we'll see about moving on from there. Okay, so we come in, we take cross collar grip, push pull, hook into the legs, I grab the sleeve, distance foot goes in, foot on the bicep goes in. Now, this foot over here, my right leg, is sort of all by itself. I've got my right hand, and left foot all on one side of Sean's body. But this leg over here is working on his left side, unsupported by things like a spider grip. Here, it's just all out by its lonesome. So this is probably where Sean's gonna first try to break through and break down my guard. He might bring his knee up to my knee and start to bend my leg and pommel his hand inside. Underneath. He could go here, under. He could go like he was a moment ago, pushing down. There's all kinds of good things for him to do. The big thing is he got that point of contact off of him, so now there's different reads that he might be looking to exploit. Okay? Let's assume for now that he swims his hand inside, just because that coincides with the demonstration I had in mind for today. So he goes to about here. Now, the next thing he may do is press my leg down and take a short step to get over my leg here. Okay, now, once this happens, I need to hook his leg with my leg. So my right hooks to his right. I know right now that Sean wants to cut this knee down past my knee and get it to the floor. So my knee goes in as a block against his knee. Then I want to convert from the position I'm in now to one where my elbow is under my knee and I can hold his sleeve. Okay? But if I move my right arm down to here, then I'm going to need something that takes over what it was doing. If I move my left arm to take over for my right, I'm going to need something to take over for what my left arm was doing to control his arm. So we come down and then across. So all of these pieces move, but it's a process of replacement where I take my foot up and over, then with this foot in place, my left hand can move. It wants to move to take a cross collar grip. So that means my right can move down, elbow under knee, I hold onto a sleeve, and now I can safely take a cross collar grip. Now what I'm looking to do is give a pull and a small lift where I take my two big toes and I aim them right here where his 2 feet and his head make a triangle. I give a small lift, and I can pull out my bottom foot. So now I've got my foot on his hip, I've got a distance foot. I square back up to him center line to center line, and my left foot is now in his bicep. I adjust my collar grip, and I take the sleeve grip off my leg by pulling and kicking out to the side here. Then I can replace and go back on the attack from the other side. Okay? Now he brings his knee into my knee. He swims inside of my leg. He takes that short step around, and I hook inside of his leg here. Now I want to replace just like I did before. So that's going to mean my knee goes open and my heel comes up and over the top. Now I can go underneath and get a hold of his sleeve where my knee is reinforced by my elbow. My right hand now can go across to his lapel, and from this position I'm pulling, I give a small lift, and I take my foot back out, I realign with him here, one foot is on the bicep, cross collar and sleeve are in place, distance foot is in place. He goes to step over my leg again, here, and now we can continue this drill just like we did before. And then obviously after this, I can either attack him, or if he successfully breaks down this position, he might go in and actually pass my guard. Okay? So that's one way of going from open guard seated position to a collared sleeve guard. Then they start moving well, they start breaking things down, going to the headquarters position. I recover from that, and I have the collared sleeve guard now on the other side. And then if I can do that successfully, I might be able to go back and attack him a second time, a third time, things like this. Now, there's a few different directions this can go. One of them is we can group together all the things that we might consider a knockdown. A knockdown being a situation where I'm playing guard, I cause my partner to fall in a backwards direction, and then I go to get up on top of him. If I can do that successfully, that would score me 2 points. That's a knockdown, where he goes backwards and I come up. That is a kind of sweep, but we can distinguish knockdowns as a kind of sweep versus other kinds of sweep where I land past his guard and or in the mount position or even on his back. So this would include things like an overhead sweep. This would include things like a hook sweep, where on the completion of the sweep, you don't just land with them seated and you in their guard, but you land in a position where you've either got the mount position or you're in the side control. Something has gone pretty well for you, so you're in a dominant position. So we can group them as knockdowns, where I knock somebody down and then I need to do something to get up, and I should expect them to be trying to do something to get up. And then there's what I would say are sweeps, which are closer to throws, where you either pick somebody up off the ground and you plant them and land in the mount, or you go out to the side and you land across their side. Okay, they're all useful, of course. The big advantage, of course, is overhead sweeps score much higher. You either land in the mount or on their back, so you would get 2 points for the sweep, and then another 4 for the mount or the rear mount. And then things like the hook sweep, they don't land you quite in the mount, but they land you far enough ahead that you're basically past the person's guard, or you're in a great position to get past the guard in the next couple of moments. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just show a couple of knockdowns and explain sort of what's going on with the knockdown, and you'll be able to find all kinds of other variations for knocking someone down. Then what you want to do once somebody's knocked down to the floor in order to get up and get into a guard passing position. Then depending on where we are, we'll go into some varieties of sweep. Okay, so let's say that I'm playing the seated guard here, and Sean is coming in to try and develop some sort of guard pass opening. If I can control his head and I can control his stance, I'm at least going to make it more difficult for him to actually just get a clean guard pass on me. I want to get my defensive guard first, so that means when I come in and grip, I use a push-pull, I square him up, and I hook in to his legs. This is so I can be centerline to centerline with him, with my legs between the two of us. Now that I've got centerline to centerline legs between the two of us, my defensive guard is taken care of. I can think about going on offense. For offense, you want to have about 4 points of connection. It's safe to have 4, but in reality, you'll have 3 with one sort of moving around to a new location in order to attack. Okay, so here would be 4 points of connection: cross collar, sleeve, and 2 hooks on the inside. Now, if I ever get to a position where I bring Sean from the outside position to a position now where he was on the outside, but I can actually reach his ankle, then a great way for me to work is to grab 1 and 2 of his legs. If I control 2 of his legs here and I push into him, I'm going to be able to knock him down. So we just go from here to a double shin sweep, where I use my 2 hooks here, hooking into his legs, my 2 hands folding to do a false grip around his heels, and then I just lift my knees and open my feet so that I can knock him down like this. Now, when we get to this position, Sean will probably land on his elbow, or come up here, and I will place my hand on the floor. What's going to happen next is we both got Sean got knocked down, so we're both seated at this point, and one of us is going to be able to get on top. Sean has to go from where he landed on his elbow up to his hand like this. Then once he's got his hand on the floor, he can heist that leg back, and if he does that successfully, he'll be back on top. Okay? Now if he's still down on his elbow here, like this, while that's happening, I can be preparing to stop him from heisting up. So I'm already on my hand, my head is already taller than his, so now I can go down and take a cross grip on his pants here, like this. When I get this grip, I can fix up a good grip on the hem of the pants, and then I want to pull so that his leg is on top of mine. Now, while I did this little grip adjustment, Sean will probably be making his movement up to his hand. There we go. Now I heist up, and because I've got a grip on his leg, I can keep a hold of him and I can prevent him from getting on top. You'll see that we land in a knee drop position here. So now Sean would be playing guard. I've got my knee drop position, and this is sort of why in the review that's up now, you can see this is the position I launch all the guard passes from. Because a lot of times if you just came from your guard, you're going to be going from a knee drop into your actual guard pass. Okay, so I'll show a couple other examples of knockdowns with the basic idea being that I've controlled their two legs in some way, shape, or form. They can't step back for at least a moment. Because that's the case, if I push into them, they're going to fall down. Then I'm in a double seated position with them, and I want to win the battle to heist up and get on top. Once I've done that, I'm in the knee drop position, and now we've sort of switched roles, and I can start my guard pass, and he can start his guard retention. Okay, so again, from this position, we've got cross collar, we push, pull, and square them up into the legs. I could go aggressive and go for submissions or close guard, but instead I go down to double shins. That's one good way to work. I could also put my distance foot here on his hip. So I'm holding one of his legs, and I put my foot up on that side. My shoelaces are hooking the far leg. I just maintain my collar grip, and I just give him a small push here to knock him down, and I start going over to the parent grip. Now as we keep going into this double seated position, I'm going to add a couple of elements so that we can develop our strategy from this position. So I go cross grip. If I can, I'll heist up, picking up his leg, and I'll double up on it. Now if I want to control the leg without using the pant grip, so that when I circle it with my arm I can maintain control of his leg, then I want to get my hand higher than my elbow. So we don't want to do this where the hand is low and my elbow is somewhat high. Instead, I always want to circle his leg like this so that my hand is higher than my elbow. Then I can double up and hold my own lapel, and now it's going to be much harder for him to take his leg out of here. I can take my other hand and take a straight lapel grip and connect elbow and knee together. I could also grab his other pant leg. The big idea right now is I've got this knee drop position that's keeping my shin in between Sean and I. So now he can't close his guard, he can't put me in triangles, so I can fix up different grips in order to pass his guard. Okay, so that's another example of a knockdown, and another way we can get up on top using that grip on the leg. Sometimes it's going to be hard to get a cross collar grip of the upper body. Maybe he's got his hands fighting you and you're not feeling so secure getting that cross collar grip. So instead we can hook in here at the lower body. I hook my shoelaces and shin to his shoelaces and shin. Now instead of going upper body, I bring myself in and I go lower body and I make a false grip around its knee. Now I move my hand over to the side so that when I move my head and hand over towards this new support position, I can make him take that same step and draw him in. Okay, so we draw the partner in, we grab a hold of the leg, and we slide in so that we're able to play from the open guard. I could go to a tripod sweep. I could go double shin sweep if I was working off the lapel. But this time we'll score a knockdown, go into the anaconda guard or the Ashi Garami. So I'm going to slide my knee through and behind Sean's knee. I draw my foot up and around the corner, and then I touch my knee and my ankle together. So I grip here, and I make him take a step forward. I grab that leg. Now that I've grabbed that leg, I'm going to slide towards it, put my two shins inside of his leg. Now I want to take my knee behind his knee. When my knee goes behind his knee, I can use it to draw him forward. When you're learning this anaconda or Ashi Garami position, you should have a few simple cues that let you know if you're on the right track. The first one is while I move, I need my shins between him and I, at least one of them. So my left shin here is going to be a barrier between us while my right shin moves underneath and behind his leg. So we slide through, my knee goes behind his knee, and I use my knee towards my chest to get his shin and my armpit to make contact. I don't want to just hold on like this and pull with my leg a little bit. I need to move my head over to his leg while I pull my knee inward. So we get this action going here. Okay, so now I've got his shin caught in my armpit. Not this. It's caught in my armpit. Okay? My knee is behind his. Now I bring my right foot up and down. What I'm looking to do is make a small slice here with my right leg so that my left knee can join my ankle. So right here, you'll see my knee and my heel are actually touching each other here. I don't want to have a break in separation between my foot
and my knee. Okay, if I can do this, shin in the armpit, knee and heel together, and then shoelaces hooking the far leg, I'm in a great position to score a knockdown. If ever possible, my other hand will stay around his leg. Okay? Sometimes you'll lose that grip. It's actually not the worst thing in the world because you have such good control over their legs with your lower body. So we get in, and now from here, I'm gonna go out to the side, so I push my hips over his knee, and I make everything go over the blade of his foot here, like this. Now we score a knockdown position. Now I've got my two legs as a barrier between us. I'm on an elbow, Sean's on an elbow. I come up, and I look to cross grip on him here, so that when we go to get up together, I've got the ability to go all the way up, double up, and now I'm in a knee drop position. Now, sometimes you're gonna get into this double seated position, whether it be from the knockdown I just did, or some other method, and you can't get to the cross grip on this leg in time. Maybe he's already up to his hand, and as I go to grip, that leg is gone. So no problem, I go up and I grab the other leg. And now I take his other leg off the floor, and I can use different kinds of grips to return him to the mat. Okay, so if I can't grab the first leg in Heist, I miss that, no problem. I'll grab the other leg and turn him over. The Anaconda or Ashi Garami is a very deep position in and of itself. I'm just going over the basic sort of structure of the guard and one way of converting it into a knockdown. But like closed guard or collar and sleeve guard, we could do many, many lessons on just that guard itself. I want to use it in this case just to illustrate how it relates to knocking somebody down, which is to control their two legs, push into them to some degree, and then flat they hit the ground, there's your knockdown. So it could be from a collar grip, it could be from going to the lower body, hooking in and grabbing. I make him take that step forward, grab a hold of the foot, and slide underneath. Now when it's time to set up the rest of my guard, I want one shin between us at all times. Then I bring my knee through and behind his knee. I use a knee pull to draw him forward as I move to the side so that I get contact with his shin in my armpit. I bring my heel up and around, and then I lift so that I've got my shoelaces hooking his hamstring and butt, and then contact with my knee and my heel over on the side of the lock. Okay, I maintain control of two legs if possible, and I look to score my knockdown here. Now I go cross gripping, and then I can work to get up and get on top. The main idea with a knockdown is you're able to control their two legs, then you push into them and they fall. Then there's this sort of battle from the seated position to actually get up on top. That's the downside of a knockdown, is you have to go through that sort of sub position to get up on top and actually complete the sweep. Anytime you can control someone's two legs, you can probably knock them down. Whether it be closed guard, or whether it be they make an error in their outside positioning, they stand too close to you and you can actually grab their legs, then you can knock them down. So this sort of illustrates some of the things that Sean would want to be doing to stop himself from being knocked down. If he's in the outside position, but I can grab his ankles, well, knockdowns are going to be on the table. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind if you're in Sean's position. And also, anytime you have control of two legs, if you push into them, they're going to start to fall. They may recover their balance, but you've got them on the run at that point, so you can go about doing other things. From an open guard, Sean's in the outside position. I need to square him up and control his head and stance, and I also need to maintain centerline to centerline with legs between us. So I go in and grip, I use a push-pull, I hook into his legs here, and I look to control his sleeve. Now I just took Sean from the outside position to a squared stance, and I've set my open guard. Sean may not want to try and pass from here. He might decide to get a grip on my pant legs and start to bring everything back and away and go down to double knee. So he puts his two knees on the ground like this. Now as this is happening, I need to be setting up my butterfly guard. This exchange that just took place, I tried to set up my open guard as we've been doing, and then Sean, recognizing what I'm doing there, decides to put two knees on the floor so that I can't pull my feet out and put him in the collar and sleeve guard. I can't pull my feet out and put him in a de la Hiva guard. I can't pull my feet out and put him in closed guard. Okay, so you can see what's happening there. By putting two knees on the ground, he puts my feet on the ground, keeps them there, and now I've got to do something else for my guard. If all I ever do is try to close my guard or go to a collar and sleeve guard, he stops that in his tracks just by putting his knees on the floor. Okay, now, by the time his knees come to the floor, I need to be in a specific position. I need to have my head in front of my hips. If that doesn't happen, then I need to use a forward shift to get up from underneath him, and then I can be in a seated position and actually attack him.
So I'm going to show where I would like to land, then I'm going to show where I'll probably land, which is not the greatest place in the world, and how to use a forward shift to actually get into a good position, and then go on the attack. Okay, so we're in with our collar grip. I push, pull, hook into the legs, and as I'm developing my game, Sean starts planting my feet down and putting his knees on the floor. Now, if I land like this with my head behind my hips, even slightly, the problem right now is, yes, Sean could jump up and go around my legs. If he even pushed on me a little bit here, he would start knocking me backwards, and it's in this moment that I'm exposed to different kinds of guard paths. Okay, so I need to have my head in front of my hips so that I can maintain my alignment and keep control, and at least move his body weight if he tries to put it on me. And I measure that by being able to put my hand on the floor to resist his ability to put body weight on me. Okay, that's head in front of hips with a hand on the ground. That's great for me, and I can attack Sean from here. But a lot of times, you will end up landing in a position like this, or worse, a position like this. In these cases, don't just try to sit up here and against your partner's body weight and resistance. What you want to do is pull them in, bring your knees to your chest, and give them a slight lift along the floor so you can sit up. So we go back, lift, and slide until we're in the position we're looking for. Think of it like you're on an air hockey table and you want that puck to glide along the floor. You don't look for up and down jumpy movements. You look for a small lift and a slide, and then everything sets down. Okay, so we go from here. I'm in a kind of bad position here where I don't really want to attack. I come down, I pull my knees to my chest, and then I lift slightly with my shoelaces and I get up along the floor here. Now I'm in a decent position to attack. That movement right there, if you are pinned down, you pull, knees to chest, small lift, and slide along the floor. That could happen because you're all the way down like this and they're pinning you down and trying to pass your guard from this position. It could be that you landed sort of teetering backwards and you don't want to just sit up. You want to pull them in, lift, and then sit up so that they're off balance while you set up your guard. We end up with a sleeve grip and a cross collar grip here. Now I'm going to use the cross collar grip and the sleeve grip to get a hold of his belt. So I push his sleeve into his body here and I pull on his lapel. Because I'm pulling his head down and I've trapped his arm, he is not going to like the sense of being spilled over in this direction. So I can expect tension from him resisting my attempts to pull him down. So I go gripping here and pulling, and Sean makes his body strong and moves away from me, and I use all of this to get a hold of his belt like this. Now I went over his arm with the belt grip. The reason I would like to do this is, one, it lets me keep his head down when I let go of this collar grip. And two, from Sean's perspective, he may be tempted to accept this grip because he feels himself having the potential to underhook on me. And taking an underhook's not the worst idea in the world for him. So I go from here, sleeve and collar, pulling, and now when Sean's resisting here trying to get away, I go over to his belt. Now he might take an underhook on me on that side. Okay, that's fine. I have a belt grip going over. This is as opposed to coming from here, I pull his head down and he resists, and I go under and grab his belt. This is fine. This will work very well for a hook sweep. But the problem is, Sean will be very suspicious of me getting any sort of underhook like this. He's going to be reluctant to go forward. He knows with this grip what comes after this grip. The other thing is he'll be looking to fight his own underhook in, and so I should be prepared to work with the belt and an over position with my hand here. Okay, so we're going to use an over grip on the belt here, but keep in mind you could also go underneath. If you maybe didn't get quite to the belt by the time they underhook on you, another great grip to work with is an overhook, where I hook over his arm and I feed the lapel like this. Can I have your head come up, Lucia? Here I've got a hold of his lapel and I've got his arm contained in my overhook. If I use this particular grip, I want to have my shoulder on top of his, and I use the collar grip to help secure that in place. Okay, it's not enough to just have my arm wrapped around his, but I need to have my shoulder coming down on top of his like this. And then we can go into the hook sweep that I'll show in a moment. Okay, so the three grips you should start with when someone's on their knees, you're playing a seated guard, and you want to sweep them over. Three grips you should work with are belt grip, over and under, and then an overhook if you can't get one of those first two because they have their underhook on you. Okay, if you get any of those grips, the hook sweep is on. So we go in, I've got my grip, he's pulling away from me, I go to his belt, he goes to an underhook, not a problem. I'm going to have a butterfly hook on the same side as the belt grip, and I need to gain control over his arm in some way that stops him from bringing his head up. Okay, so
Sean's hand goes to the floor. If his head can come up like this, it's hard to hook sweep him. In order for the hook sweep to take place, I need to get his head to go down below his hips. I need to lift his hips up into the air, and then I can actually turn him over. His hand on the floor is going to disrupt that process, because if I try to sweep him from here, he just keeps his head up like this. So I want to gain some meaningful control over his arm that stops him from lifting his head. That might mean control over his wrist, control of his sleeve, control of his wrist or sleeve with the hand close to the hip. That might mean hand over elbow, hand under elbow, like I have now. There's a whole bunch of different ways I can control his arm, but all of them have the same quality where when I start tilting my shoulder down to the floor, they stop him from putting his hand on the mat and lifting his head up. Okay? So we're here, however I do it, I gain control of his arm. Now I pull on the belt grip to attach him to me. I commit my shoulder down to the floor and I start lifting with my butterfly hook. As I lift with my butterfly hook, I push with my foot off the floor, then I move my head and shoulders away, and I turn him all the way over, and I get up on top. Okay, at this point I could land maybe in the mount, side control, there's different places you'll end up. Now there's 1,000 different things that are happening in a hook sweep. I'm just gonna point out some of the key elements that you wanna be working with so that you don't go from a hook sweep into getting knee weaved and your guard packed. So one of the most important for a hook sweep is keeping your knee above their hip. So what I'm talking about is, let's assume I've gotten into my attacking grip here. This is my butterfly hook. My shin is somewhat vertical. My knee is higher than Sean's hip. One of the main things that people will struggle with when they first learn a hook sweep is they allow their own knee to collapse lower than their partner's hip. When this happens, they're always going to allow for this. They're going to accept it because it puts him in a great position to pass. So say, for example, I have my grip, I have some control over his arm, and I start my hook sweep. Now Sean steps his other leg out to the side here to try and brace against the hook sweep, and I look to get into a position where I can start to lift him up. But I make a mistake. I'm lifting, but my knee drifts down below his hip. So I was here with my knee, but now, for one way or another, my knee is now lower than his hip. If I keep pulling for the hook sweep, I pull Sean right into a knee weave. He brings his knee forward, and now I went from a good position to a horrible position. Okay? This often happens because people go to hook sweep and they're doing a good job with the hook sweep, but as they move, they straighten their hook leg, they straighten it out too much, too early, and then they get collapsed down to the floor. Okay? The movement of the hook is very small. Okay? I pull him up, I get to my knee, my foot, and my shoulder, and it's a small flick once I have him up in the air. I don't want to lengthen my leg early like this and keep my hips down. This is no good. This will always result in you getting crushed. Okay? Pull them forward, get their head down and their hips up, and only at the very end do you flick them over. Okay, you'll notice that I'm taking my support leg and I'm getting purposefully onto my knee and my foot, so we don't go to a hook sweep like this and just lie down to the floor. This doesn't do anything. My shoulder comes down. As my shoulder comes down, I lift up onto my knee and foot. Now the hook by itself will start turning the person over. This is always what we're looking for. Here. Okay? And then you'll get a strong hook sweep. So, we're in here, seated guard. I'm able to get some sort of grip, overhook, belt grip, and I keep my knee higher than his hip. I use the belt grip and pulling to make sure that I can stay flush to him here. Now I look for meaningful contact and control over his arm. I put my support leg down on the ground and I commit my shoulder to the floor. I start lifting, lifting, lifting. Sean steps his leg up here. Yep. Now I want to make sure to get as much lift as possible from my support leg here. Sean will probably keep hopping around against the floor. And once he's doing that, I just look and move my head. And we get a nice turnover and we end up on top. Again, those of you that have been studying hook sweep with me for some time now, you know that there's a whole bunch of other things that can go into a hook sweep. This is just one method of going about attacking somebody with the butterfly guard and the hook sweep. There's one other movement from that same position that I think is important to go over, and that's when you cannot get control of their arm because their hand is on the floor or something along those lines. So you need to use other grips and body movements to retain your guard and to actually finish the sweep. So let's say Sean's in the double knee position. I'm able to get some sort of grip here and here, and I start working for the belt. I start turning my body to the side, I start developing this attack here. But Sean knows that once I get control of his arm, the hook sweep is on. So he moves his hand away from me like this. When his hand moves away and touches the floor, my hand goes to the floor. I'm going to use the same heisting motion from earlier to get up to my knee. Now that I'm on my knee and my head is up high and my armpit's above his head, I can go into a front headlock grip. If I get the front headlock grip, I can go right back to the hook sweep and turn him over, and that would be fantastic. I could also go further, put my wrist up high, and attack a guillotine. Okay, maybe we'll go over that another day, but the big idea is I get some sort of control over his head. Once I've got control of his head, I could hook sweep him, I could guillotine him. If I'm going to complete the hook sweep, my shoulder goes back to the floor, I curl his head down, and I slide my leg back underneath here. So I can turn him over and get right on top. Now I can convert the head control into something like a triangle or other good attacks in that position. Okay, so that's just a good piece to keep in mind, because if you are looking to hook sweep somebody and they're not giving you control of the arm, but you have all the other pieces in place, go back to the fundamentals of sweeping somebody from the double knee position, which is get their head down, get their butt up. If that happens, they're going to go right over. So if you can't control their arm, that's fine. Control their head. That keeps their head down. The hook gets their hips up, and you'll be able to turn them right over. Okay? So that's a great way to attack somebody out of a double knee position. We've looked at the outside position briefly. We looked at getting out of the head quarters position briefly. We looked at attacking somebody from a double knee position very briefly. So I'm going to take this from outside position. I'm going to establish the open guard, collar, and sleeve. Then I'm going to adjust the collar and sleeve in order to get to an overhead sweep from the De La Hiva. So we come in, and however it happens, we end up getting cross collar, push pull, hooking of the legs, and I get a hold of the sleeve. Now I go distance foot on the hip. My other foot goes to the bicep. I always want my cross collar hand to go up toward the back of his head. I turn my palm towards me and I pull my elbow down towards my hip. On the sleeve grip, I want to take a 4-finger grip in the cuff and then turn my palm up so that I can pull his grip away. Now, I'm in a good position to attack from the collar and sleeve guard, but I can go a little further than this. Instead of going to a triangle, I'm going to go to an overhead sweep. So I'm going to take my distance foot and I'm going to go into a De La Hiva guard on the outside of his leg. So that my knee goes outside and in, and my shoelaces hook inside of his thigh. Now I'm going to change my grips. I'm going to go from a cuff grip up to a grip here on the seam of his gi, right above his elbow at his tricep here. I take my grip, it's going to be a 3-finger grip, my middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger, focusing on the grip, and then the palm will turn. So I grip here, and I turn my palm away like this. Now I go from cross-collar grip to a straight grip on the other side. I turn my palm on that grip as well, it's a 3-finger grip, I turn my palm towards me like this. Okay? Now I take a new distance foot here on the hip. So all 4 pieces of my guard have moved slightly. Okay, it starts with my left leg, outside position. It was a distance foot, now it hooks from the outside. Then my left arm, it goes up to the elbow, right at the tricep. I fix up a good grip and yank all the slack out of his gi, and then I turn my palm out. Now my right hand moves, goes from cross collar to straight. I turn my palm towards me on that side. Now the foot that was on the bicep goes down here to the hip. Okay, now I've got my position ready for the overhead sweep. To make an overhead sweep work, I need to get his head next to my head. That's going to mean a few things. I'm going to bring my knees to my chest, and I'm going to pull my elbows up towards my shoulder line. That gets the ball rolling. So I go knees to chest, and elbows go up high, like this. Once I've gotten knees to chest and my elbows go up high, then I'm going to look to bring his head down next to mine here. Once I've brought elbows high, knees to chest, and I've brought his head down and next to mine, I can collapse my elbows and I bring my 2 big toes over my shoulder. Since my right foot is my distance foot and my right hand is on his lapel, I'm going to take him over my right shoulder. Okay, so my 2 big toes will look to place him on the floor here. It's not me picking him up and throwing him into the air. I'm picking him up and I'm setting him down with control. This is important if you're training with somebody, maybe they're not used to this sweep. You don't want to be picking people up and violently slamming them into the ground when they're just learning how this all works. But if I can pick Sean up slowly and with control, then he will be willing to go into the sweep because he knows he's not going to get hurt. And that's a big part of learning how to do overhead sweeps properly, making sure your partner isn't scared to take the fall, because then they won't want to train with you. So we've got all our grips. I go elbows high above the shoulders and I knee pull my legs in. Now I bring my elbows together and I keep his head right next to mine. I give him a tiny, tiny lift and I set him down with control. I still have contact with the legs, and I come all the way up to the mount. I keep my 2 grips and I pull everything up. This is an overhead sweep. Just like with a hook sweep, there's 1,000 different ways you can do the overhead sweep. The big thing you want to accomplish when you're doing an overhead sweep is to get their head right next to your head. If you can get their head next to your head, they're going to go over. So similar to a hook sweep, where a hook sweep you want their head down and their butt up, and maybe you're off to the side, one way or the other, you can hook sweep them. Overhead sweep, similar in that it has one main requirement. How you get there is up to you, but if you can get there, you can overhead sweep them. That requirement is to get their head right next to your head. If you can do that, they're going to go over. Now keep in mind, when we've been doing our guard passes, we've had 4 stances more or less that we've been doing our passes from. So that's outside position, knee drop position, double knee position, and the headquarters position. You could summarize what actions to take in those positions in a bunch of different ways, but one way to look at it is someone's in the outside position and you need to use movement to create some sort of meaningful contact and connection that stops that side-to-side rapid direction change that outside position is known for, and then actually go on the attack. So if I'm playing guard and someone's in the outside position, it's a good idea for me to make strong connections to them so they're not blowing past my legs, and then I can think about actually attacking them. Okay, from a double knee position, a good thing to do whenever someone goes down to 2 knees is to start with a hook sweep. Okay, it's not going to be the case that you can always hook sweep somebody, but I spent most of my time in the white through blue belt phase just being hook swept over and over and over, and now I try to return the favor and put people into a lot of hook sweeps. You'll be surprised at how often you can hook sweep people from a double knee position if you know a few different grips, if you know more or less what you're trying to accomplish on big picture, meaning get their head down and get their head up. If you can do that, you can hook sweep a lot of people. They won't necessarily stay in that double knee position. They'll probably change their stance in some way. They may try to go back to the outside position, so you'll want meaningful connection and contact to them. And then they also might try to go to a headquarters position. Now, it is possible to attack people directly from the headquarters. You can invert underneath their body. You can do all kinds of things to attack people from the headquarters. But for today, what we looked at was getting out of the headquarters and back to a collar sleeve guard. The collar and sleeve guard is essentially the headquarters of open guard, whereas the person on top, the headquarters of passing guard, would be obviously the headquarters. But those are sort of, they stand on opposite sides, where collar and sleeve guard, it captures a lot of the potential places somebody can land. If my partner is on 2 knees, outside position, they were in my closed guard, so many different places. If I can get to a collar and sleeve guard with that distance foot on the hip, the cross collar and sleeve grip, and then a foot on the bicep, I can attack them. Triangle, armbar, omoplata, closed guard, there's lots of ways to attack. The equivalent response to the collar and sleeve guard is to move into the headquarters position. That eliminates a lot of the immediate danger for the person on top. The person on bottom is expected to be able to convert the headquarters position back into the collar and sleeve guard. It will generally be on the opposite side. And that's where sometimes people get thrown off, is they get used to playing it on one side, collar and sleeve, then they're required to play it on the other side, and they feel a little bit lost. And that works in the favor of the guard passer if they can mix you up and have you a little bit confused. So for headquarters position, I don't think there's a one specific attack that you should go for, but rather you should think about collar and sleeve guard on both sides as being the way to respond to the headquarters. Okay, so from outside position, we want strong contact with the other person so that they're not going side to side freely and going right past my legs. That might mean a double shin sweep, that might mean cross collar and sleeve, it might mean tripod sweeps to knock them down, it might mean anaconda, Ashi, Garami. There's a lot of different ways you can work. You need contact so that you can follow them so they don't use that mobility advantage and go past your legs side to side. Then we have double knee position. The best first attack you can do is to hook sweep them. When they respond to that, you can follow up with different forms of attack, but someone's on 2 knees, try to hook sweep them. Headquarters position, as I just mentioned, collar and sleeve guard comes into play, they go to headquarters, you return them to the collar and sleeve guard on the opposite side. Okay? That leaves us with a knee drop position. Just so we're all on the same page, the way that you take somebody out of a knee drop is by using forward and backward rocking chair motion, so something like this. in order to either heist up and ankle pick the person who's in the knee drop position, or if you can't ankle pick them, you going forward, then drawing them in on the backwards portion of this rocking chair motion. And it's in that backwards portion that we can use overhead sweeps. Again, there's a whole bunch of other attacks that you can do from an open guard, but this is a good, at least primary attack from each of the major stances that you're going to run into. And so you have something that you can work on in any stance that they go into to try and attack you, with the exception being knee drop. We'll cover that another time. This will allow for you to now study some of the guard passes that I've just put up, and this now can be the other half of that. Some ideas about guard retention, and then some ways to go about attacking somebody. Once you've established a defensive guard, then you can start thinking about offense, whether it be open guard like I was just demonstrating, half guard, closed guard, there's all those kinds of options.